Salam, shalom, peace be unto you. Welcome back to the Septuagint versus the Masoretic channel. Today I'm going to just clear up some of the controversy regarding the beginning of the year, specifically determining the barley being ripe, being ready to harvest. So first we have here, I referenced this in my last video, regarding the Aviv barley, but I was not really clear as to what we were focusing on. So this is from March the 7th, 2021, 2 years ago. It says here, Becca Biederman reported that the black spring wheat was already out of the boot and flowering on March the 7th. This is highly significant. This is very important because the wheat and the spelt ripen later than the barley. It is a later crop. So if the wheat is already out of the boot and flowering, there is no possibility, I repeat, zero possibility, that we could still be in the first month in that year of March 2021, that month, as defined by scripture, because the wheat and the spelt, they only start to become aviv after the barley. So the wheat and the spelt only ripen after the barley is ready. So literally developing in the head. That's what aviv means according to this writer. Okay, let me just pause for a moment here. Okay, so the first scripture we're going to look at is Exodus 9, 31 and 32. And the flax and the barley were smitten, for the barley was advanced. So it was ready, prepared. It was prepared to be harvested. It was ripe enough. And the flax was seeding. But the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were late, meaning they were not ready yet. So let's look at, there's the scripture reference being used here. So it says here, logically speaking, if the wheat is already flowering, then the month of the Aviv has to be a past event, just based on these verses in Exodus 9. Okay, the next one we're going to read is March the 19th. That's the next entry. It says here, Becca Biederman inspected a barley field near Migdalah, Israel, that was approximately 2 weeks behind the earlier field in Poria Elite. The barley fields were not at all uniform, which makes the Karaite doctrine of waiting for uniform fields impossible. I'm going to repeat that because that seems to be contention with some groups that say you need harvestable fields, and they being the fields need to be uniformly ripened. And I'm just going to read that again. The barley fields were not at all uniform. Again, waiting for uniform fields to be ripened is impossible to ripen uniformly. The first flush was already too brittle for harvesting, and much of it was already shattered and on the ground, while the second flush was still green and immature. This crop could have been harvested with a wave sheaf offering on February the 28th, 2021, but there is no possibility that this barley can wait for a wave sheaf offering on the 4th of April, 2021, as the first flush is already lost. Here's a sample photo with a shattered barley head. So there is a video on that as well. I'm not going to open that. Let me just pause once again to get to my next reference. So the next entry I'm going to reference is the 23rd of March, 2021. Becca Biederman reports that the heirloom black spring wheat, which was offered in the temple times, is in bloom. Because wheat is a later crop, again, wheat is a later crop than the barley and the flax, wheat and rye. And because black wheat is even later, there is no possibility that this can still be the first month. And again, the reference is Exodus 9. Okay, the next... Okay, I'm going to use this reference as well. March 25th, they're mentioning how it snowed at this time in 2021 in northern Israel. And they mentioned it is pretty funny because according to the other barley groups, it would mean that we are still in winter. And the Passover and the wave sheaf offering should hypothetically be pushed back yet another month, even though we already have barley dropping on the ground. So I'm going to use this to prove a point later on in the video, because they're saying because there is snow, you should push the beginning of the year, delay it further, essentially because of the snow, even though we have barley dropping on the ground. So I'm just going to use this right now to say that whether it's raining or snowing or whatever the weather conditions are, hail, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, it doesn't matter. The key evidence, what we're trying to look for, the key to starting the new year at all, is to have barley being aviv, being ripe and harvestable, dropping on the ground. It has not. There's no weather does not play a part in terms of determining the new year. It is the barley period and the new moon in terms of the timing of the month. Okay, let me just pause once again. Okay, so the next entry is April the 9th, 2021. Becca Biederman shows how barley fields in Israel do not ripen uniformly, but in patches. We referenced this in a previous video, so just reiterating that. On the 15th, Becca Biederman shows how there is plenty of wild wheat ready in time for Shavuot, and how some of it is already shattering. Plenty of heirloom wheat is ready in time for Shavuot on April the 15th. This is important. Why? Because while the first fruits of barley should be ready in time for the wave sheaf offering, or the sheaf that has to be lifted up, the lifting of the sheaf day, as I call it, the day of the the day of the lifting of the sheaf, according to the Septuagint. The first of the wheat is supposed to be ready in time for Shavuot, Pentecost, and that is how it was this year. For those of us who held the wave sheaf offering at the correct time. Okay, so let's just repeat that one more time. The wheat should not be ready. If it's the new year, it's a later crop. So the first fruits of barley should be ready in time for the wave sheaf offering, yes. The first of the wheat is supposed to be ready for Shavuot, not for Passover, not for the wave sheaf offering. That's later on. That means by April 15th, if they're trying to keep Passover during this month, it's already late. So that's the proof. That's the hard evidence, is the wheat, as opposed to what I said in the previous video. I have to correct myself, self-correct here, that it is not the flax that is the greatest evidence. It is actually the wheat. So it's the wheat that provided the evidence in 2021, and it is going to be the wheat once again this year, 2023, to indicate whether this month, technically the Gregorian month of March, 2023, was the correct starting of the new year, end of February, or will it be in April? So that will be the litmus test, the defining factor. The wild heirloom wheat will no longer be around by the time of the Karaite and Abib of God Pentecost celebrations, proving once again that the Karaite and Abib of God wave sheaf offering is a month too late. And I'm not trying to attack any groups. I'm just reading what is written here. Okay, I'm going to read a note here. Contrary to what some people teach, when your first fruits shatter and fall to the ground, that is not good. Rather, it is very bad. In ancient times, farmers needed as much food as possible to feed their families and pay their bills. But if the barley shattered and fell on the ground, it was lost and could not be used to feed their families or pay their bills. Shattered barley is a total loss. That's not what they're looking for when we're looking to determine the new year. Okay, let me pause this video once again just to cover all topics regarding this new year. Okay, so before I get to this last topic, it's the same topic really, but the last article, let me just review Exodus 9 verse 31 because I think it really is vitally important for those who strive to obey the Torah, want to obey Yah in terms of the timing of his festivals, of his Moedim in Leviticus 23. So in verse 31 and 32, it says here, the flax and the barley were smitten, for the barley was advanced and the flax was seeding. Okay, so the barley and the flax were essentially ripe, or they were growing. At least the barley was advanced. It was ready to be harvested. But the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were late. They are later crops. They were not grown up in the Masoretic as it's rendered there. So those were the two, those will be the two, and they are the two pieces of evidences, the two witnesses, you could say, as to when does the actual biblical New Year begin, according to the scriptures, not according to my opinion or anyone's opinion, but according to the scriptures. And this is prime evidence that has been preserved by Yah, I should say by Moses through Yah's inspiration, by the Elohim of Israel. The wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were late. So that is really how we can verify when is the actual sacred New Year. Okay, now I'm going to go and read this email I received from Devorah's Date Tree. It is titled, Why a Patch is Not Enough. Oh no, I read this already. Okay, it's not that one. We're going to read something else. Okay, so welcome back. This is the final topic to address. It is, what about the rain? This is a email that I received from Devorah's Date Tree. Dear friends, as we prepare to head out for the barley inspection next week, again, they haven't even started to inspect, Becca Biederman, just to compare and contrast, started to examine the barley and inspect it, I believe, last year. I think many months ago, I think towards the end of the year, the Gregorian year, which was around December, January, if I'm not mistaken. So she's been tracking it for at least 3 months minimum. And they haven't even started. So whose witness is more reliable? The one who hasn't started or the one who's been tracking it obsessively and diligently? As we prepare to head out for the barley inspection next week, we thought this would be a good opportunity to answer the question, what about the rain? Well, what about it? As we mentioned in one of our recent newsletters, it is still raining here. And they also mentioned in 2021 that there was snow. What effect does that have on the barley? Well, none. Because if the barley is ripe, whether it's raining, there's hail or snow, doesn't matter. It is the condition of the barley. What stage of maturation has it reached? So I'm going to continue reading just to complete it. This is how much it rained. This is how much rain we had yesterday. There's a typo. March 13th, 2023, 9 millimeters, and various measurements throughout Israel. Here's a video I took. Okay, what relevance does that have if the barley is already ripe? Show us the barley, not the rain. We're not looking for the rain, we're looking for the barley. We're expecting more rain throughout the country this and next week. While it is not fun inspecting the fields when they are wet and muddy, it could start pouring on us at any time. That's what umbrellas are for. It's important that we inspect the fields prior to the upcoming new moon observation on March 22nd. And I'm just going to be a little brutally honest. We should have started months in advance. You don't do it in the last minute. This isn't procrastination. We don't start looking for Jesus Christ or Yeshua when he's already here. We look for the signs before he arrives, like when he was born as a human being. They were looking for the star. They were looking for various signs as to when the king of Israel would be born. These are the Magi. So why would we likewise be lazy? Just to be a little blunt there. Why would we not go in advance and inspect? I'm not saying I'm doing all the work. I'm saying that Becca did. She did the work. She's doing the work. She will continue to inspect. I think she will most likely inspect the wheat and see the condition of that later on, just to verify whether this is the new year or not in beginning of March, or is it April? It's important to prove all things, as Scripture encourages us, admonishes us. It should be noted that since the seasons don't transit gradually here, but rather fluctuate... Let me repeat that. It should be noted that since the seasons don't transit gradually here, but rather fluctuate back and forth between a week of summer, followed by a week of winter, we can't make any assumptions about the current state of the barley. Well, why would we make assumptions? We should just look at it. Just look at it. Look at it with your own eyes. Other than the farmers obviously would not have started harvesting yet. Now, I'm going to refute this statement. I'm not going to say they are harvesting. They don't. What I'm going to say is they use modern industrial agricultural methods. They use a combine. They don't go out there in the fields with hand sickles the way they once did in ancient times. So they're not meeting the biblical requirements of what is Aviv barley. They're using their own determinations, non-scriptural determinations, by waiting for the fields of barley to be uniformly ripe, and not just ripe, but actually late, so that they're shattering the moment you touch it, and that's lost crop essentially. If you're translating it back to ancient methods, scriptural methods, I'm not just saying because it's ancient it's true. We're looking at what did they do in the scriptures. Look at the book of Ruth, for example. They didn't have the combine. They had to go and look for the early, the first flush, as Becca put it. Okay. Potential first month holiday dates. We will have a better idea which of these scenarios may be correct only once we inspect the fields. Why haven't you done it yet? That's my question. Just prior to the upcoming new moon observation on March the 22nd. Again, I don't believe these individuals live in the land of Israel. If they do, then I stand corrected, but they haven't started the barley inspection. That is, they just mention it. They haven't started because it says here, we have not inspected the barley fields yet, as they open their letter. They plan to do it next week. They haven't started yet. Subscribe to our email list and social media platforms to ensure you don't miss that report. So I do respect this group for at least being honest enough to say that the new month is determined by the sighted moon, by the visible crescent moon. I mean, I give them credit for that, because that is scriptural. However, they're not being 100% honest, because they haven't even started the barley inspection, and they are not using the witness of Exodus 9:31 and 32 to simply use logic and say, okay, well, if the wheat is ripe, then we cannot have the new year now, because that was ready last month. So what happens to their Passover? It's late. It's not the correct Passover. They had a chance to keep it in the correct time. and I speak for myself as well. Let's just say, hypothetically, I did not keep Passover the way I did, or at the timing that I did, then I would have been late. And there is no, you can't just do second Passover because you were late. That is not the criterion for doing that, at least in my opinion, and at least scripturally as well. We don't see any arguments about that being the case for keeping a second Passover. Above are the potential holiday dates. So these are the dates they provide. So their scenario is, let me just read it here. First day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. They believe it'll be April the 5th at the earliest, or May the 4th. So one is a month late, the other one is 2 months late. Which means not only will these be late, these Passover festivals, Passover spring festivals will be late by a month to 2 months, but even their Sukkot, their Feast of Tabernacles of Booths, will be late by 1 to 2 months as well. Because 6 months from April would be October, and from May, November. So October, November would be their potential Feast of Tabernacles. I'm not judging them and condemning them for that. I'm just saying, making an observation and saying that's just what's going to happen if they only close their minds and don't open their minds to March being a potential date. So we haven't seen the wheat, or I haven't seen any reports of the wheat yet. So I don't want to jump to conclusions and say that it is the new year. I'm saying it very well might be the new year at this point. There was an omer of Aviv barley ready, and more than that. So I'm leaning more towards it. It is the new year, in fact. I'm going to say 70% at least. But we will be 100% sure after we have witnesses and evidence via photographic and videographic evidence that show us without a shadow of a doubt that the wheat is ready, is ripe, and that would be known at least maybe a month from now. So that would be around the time that they're keeping Passover. So around April, the end of April, maybe mid to late April, we would know when the wheat is ripe and ready to be harvested, indicating that yes, it indeed was the new year in March. But let's wait and see. For now, these are the evidences I went over from the Nazarene Israel website, I should say, and the articles that they posted back in 2021, but very useful and very handy in 2023 when you're trying to prove when is the new year and how do we determine that. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention, for your time. Please like this video if you found this helpful to you. Don't just believe me, believe what is in the scriptures. Pray to Adonai, pray to Yah to give you the wisdom, the discernment to be able to determine using the scriptures, using the logic that Yah has given you, when is the new year? How do we determine that? And not only the new year, when are the holy days? When is Passover? When is the Feast of Unleavened Bread? Or I should say, when was it? Because it seems to have been past, but we will know again with 100% certainty once those the wheat harvest. There's reports on that. When we receive reports of the wheat harvest, the wheat crop, I should say, being ripe and ready to be harvested. Wheat is a crop that is harvested for Shavuot, for Pentecost. So that's all for this video. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Please like and subscribe to this channel if you have not. If you have, thank you very much for your support. Until next time, salam, shalom, peace be unto you, and Maranatha.